Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, where you are, anywhere across this great wide world of ours today. Um, Many of you know on my last video I talked about water is life and how important, especially in the summer months when we get into this drought season on many of these reservations, and the issue about water and quality water. And when we think about this, we often think about how necessarily in the scheme of things in life that when we talk about this, that the philosophy that emerges out of this is many of the reservations that came in existence or tend to be in isolated areas, especially west of the Mississippi, and tend to be in very rural outlying areas as well, east of the Mississippi. And they're not located in urban settings or urban blight locations because never occurred what white settlers would do or the white elitists would do is move these reservations out amongst any civilization, what they considered civilization. Because remember, even Jefferson would often call Native Americans noble savages. And when you think of the word savages, you're thinking very negative connotation about people in their ancestries in life. But this philosophy goes, like I said, when we talk about this philosophy, and as a psychologist, we talk about how to rectify or to not rectify, but to solidify or to affirm a class of people as worthy of excuse me among people, and just the dry throat and the allergies. The first thing you have to do is dehumanize a civilization, dehumanize a race. And when we think about this, we often think of Hitler in the 20th century. Prior to that, this philosophy would turn into areas like Roman Empire would have slaves conquer people and then turn them into slaves, especially like the Gallics, the people out there, and this would also go on amongst the Alexander the Great and a few other societies that they would conquer a person or a civilization or a race. They would turn them into slaves, and when this would occur, they would have to dehumanize these people as like lesser subjects. And this is the case, like I said, during the 20th century, with Hitler doing this with the Jews. I would also argue right now this could be also argued. This can happen now with the Palestinians and the Jewish society as they dehumanize Palestine. And this is not this. This is a video for this. I'm not arguing for or against that, but we cannot classify a civilization like Palestine, and Palestine deserves a chance to have their own state. And consequently, we talk about the Native Americans as well as we are, as a society, we have forced them on reservations, not out of forced necessity to get them off lands that we as white elitists or even leadership within the United States thought were important groups of land, either for natural resources or for farming Case in point, we can argue this occurs under the first time under Andrew Jackson, who with forces Cherokee or the five civilized tribes, Cherokee, Choctaw, off lands in southeast United States, east of the Mississippi, and forces them into lands west of the Mississippi and lands into Missouri, Oklahoma. Those areas there, in case in point, becomes the Trail of Tears, where many of the Native Americans would end up dying because of starvation, being on forced settlements. And remember, when we talk about this forced settlement, this is not, a peachy thing or something that is glorified, in the sense that it is run by the Department of War and could be considered some form of concentration camp that would exist during the 20th century. Case in point, with Hitler forcing Jewish settlements onto concentration camps. But in the case of point of Native Americans, the issue becomes a displacement onto reservations, and these reservations tendency were rural, isolated areas, far from any kind of urban setting, so that if need be, if a settlement would break out or a war would break out with a tribe, that they can the city, case in point, let's say in the Treaty of Greenville, which is in the United States, that occurs in the 1790s. There's a set that treaty is signed, and Native Americans are given the land north of 1790, which is in parts of northern Ohio and northern Indiana, and then are placed on these lands. And if war or rebellion would break out with Native Americans, the militia could be found in Cincinnati and the city of Dayton in a war, and they would form a war militia and put down the rebellion on the reservations. And this would be the case that would follow predominantly. And this goes back to we can even look back to King Saul's War, when the settlements first come in the 1630s, 1650s, that they would move them and isolate it away from urban areas. That way, that part of the militia's intent is that they could raise a militia to help push the rebellion down. And which, in case, like I said, it would be I consider quasi a form of concentration camps, and not necessarily, like I said, the whole issue on the BIA seems to be based on a system that's developed well into the 1830s. Though FDR in the 1930s under Harold Ickes tries to reform many of the programs, they're still based on that 1930s, the foundation of the 1830s, and well into the foundation of 1930s, and really hasn't much changed during that period of time, except more administrative costs, which really doesn't help the Native American tribes themselves, but it does help create more bureaucracy for the United States government, which in essence, in their intent, or the intent with this is saying, well, they can be more efficient and help Native Americans. But my contention is the office is in Washington, D.C., and even though they have regional offices, the intent here is that office should really be moved somewhere out in Texas and Oklahoma if they want to create a headquarters where it's more coincide with the heartland of the United States. And secondary, we don't need 12 divisions of the BIA regional offices. We need like just 4 centralized locations, and then that money converted to the tribal, because really the tribal leaders know what is their people need. and not necessarily the federal government. So I would rather see that money funneled rather onto the tribal level, and then go from there, and not necessarily the bureaucracy of that. And then I am not too uh, thinking that the casinos and which in principle sounds like a good suggestion concerning giving them social programs as well as infrastructure programs for Native reservation is critical. But my belief is once the baby boomers completely die out, Gen X completely died out, then and we're going to have a lower population at that point, the need for casinos will diminish. And much like the mall situation in the 70s and 80s, we're going to have a lot of facilities that are going to be vacant and will become blight situations on the reservations. And like I said, none of these issues have been addressed by the BIA, and intended the old philosophy, let's just kick the can down the road and necessarily not deal with the issue of in hand about streamlining the BIA, saving money for Native Americans and getting that money more funneled to the people on the reservations, rather creating more bureaucracy on the reservation. So my content here is to always say that we need to stream, and I've talked about this before, that we've got an outdated BIA, and that we need to streamline and look at the situations where we can create more funding on what's the old saying, the military says boots on the ground. In this case, we get more funding at the tribal level rather than the regional offices or regional level, which would be, like I've said, more behoon to the tribal leaders than the regional office. Anyway, these are some food for thoughts. Please like and subscribe. My email is bthomasmillerpsych@gmail.com. It's bthomasmillerpsych@gmail.com. Feel free to reach out to me there. Also, remember, I do have books available online under B. Thomas Miller and also Boyd Miller. They're available on Amazon. Case in Point is the last book I wrote, Water Quality on the Reservation. Anyway, folks, I hope to hear from you soon, and have a great week. Talk to you soon. Bye.